WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today, my second video on Waterford. Yay! Waterford, Irish single malt whiskey, single farm origin, Bannow Island edition 1.2. Barley forward, terroir driven. Excellent, excellent. Hey, look, Simon is there. Sorry, wanted to pronounce it in the German way. Simon, hey, greetings from Ireland. Good job. All right, very, very good. So what happened is Waterford actually, at least here in Germany, they put out two bottles. That was number one was the Bannow Island, and the other one, which I just reviewed, was here the Ballykiltaven. That was 1.1 and 1.1, and they were sold out within hours. I was imagine, man, wow. Oh, sorry, I've been called words, my friend. Thank you, Simon. And now they've actually, because of the incredible demand, they've actually decided to bump up some of the bottlings and actually put 4 onto the European market at once. 2 from farms we've already had and 2 new farms which we haven't had yet. So this is actually a farm I've had, and so I would like to just introduce you to the farmer, if I may, because this guy is a really, really nice guy. You can see him here. This is Ed. So Ed grew this barley, all right? So he grew it on the island called Bannow Island, and it's actually been in the bottle now, or in the barrel now, I'm sorry, for 3 years, 10 months, and 22 days. Now, the process of terroir at Waterford is very, very, very important, and we'll be talking about that in a second. So if I take a look at the map here, we actually, let's go to the pictures first. We have some nice pictures of Bannow Island. We can see the soil, the beach basically here. We can see the sandy soil, especially here with the barley. We can see the cracked soil here. We can see the wonderful, wonderful barley. Wow, good stuff here. All right, so what we have here is a so-called timeline. So for this whiskey, there was the 1.1, 1.2, and the 1.3 and 1.4 that are coming. All of the barley for that whiskey was sown on the 23rd of March, 2015. All of it was harvested on the 7th of September, 2015. All of it arrived in the cathedral on the 8th of September, 2015. The cathedral is the place at Minch Malting in Ireland, where they have a box for each and every farm so that the barley is not mixed up, but yet kept all by itself. And then actually it went for malting not in September, not in October, November, December, January, February, March. It was on April, on the 18th of April. So, and then the malted barley arrived about a month later at the distillery. And then about another 3 weeks later, it started to ferment. We know exactly the fermentation time because it tells us up here. Whoops, it tells us down here. I'm sorry. So the fermentation time is 136 hours, 0.2. So we know that, and we know that it's also a variety of barley called Overture. So very, very interesting is that I have 3 bottles here that have 3 different types of whiskey. The Ballymorgan was also Overture, so it was a very bad example. So my Sheestown is Irene, and my I just had before was my Ballykiltaven, was my Taberna, or Taberna. So good. It arrives in the cathedral. It arrives then. It's fermented, as I just mentioned here, for the amount of time that we needed. And then it was distilled within 5 days. So distillation started on the 9th of June. What I think is very interesting is it took them 8 days to distill this crop, which I think is a fairly long time. But hey, I don't know. It's a very slow distillation process. Then it was filled at the warehouse on the 23rd of June. And now if people are watching from Waterford, the question is, why was there no marriage of casks? The other 3 were married. There was a marriage of casks. Here, none. Did you forget to enter it, or did it not happen? I just know that it was sent for bottling on the 6th of July. If you watch the video here, it's actually on YouTube and also here. You find the code to get in on the back of each and every bottle and also on the back of each and every box. So in this case, it's F014E01-02. So you can just get in there and see all this information. Very, very important here. You can actually see where the different fields are. I'm going to zoom in here real quick. So you can actually see the individual fields where he, Ed, actually here did his, grew his barley. And then if we take a look at this in comparison here, that's a peninsula. You can see where Waterford is. It's just over here. So it's not that far away from the distillery, to be honest. So you actually get a cross-section of the soil. So you can see here a little bit of the real good soil, the top soil here, and then down below you have the sandy soil. Actually here, you have a wonderful description of the soil, which I think is boring, but that's okay. And then you actually, every time they distill here, they always use the same distiller's yeast. Since I'm on the page, I'd now like to move on here to the wood that is used. So what we have here is actually the typical ratios that Waterford wants to have. They want to have about 35, 36% of first fill US, so bourbon casks. They want to have about 20, 21% a virgin US cask, which means virgin white oak. They want to have maybe 27%, I'm sorry, 17% of the premium French oak, and they want to have about 25% here of the vin du naturel VDN casks. And in this case, we do know it's Oloroso sherry. So we have here actually a little bit of a higher proportion than usually. Usually they have 1,000 liters, and this time they put 1,500 liters in here. Maybe that's one of the reasons I actually like this a lot more. All the U.S. virgin oak always comes from the Speyside cooperage, and in this case, we had a lot of first fill American from Jack Daniel's, which is very, very nice. So you can actually see here 2.2, 195, 193, 0.93. So we have very exact measurements, and you can see the various size of the cask because they're handmade. Hey. And then we have here the premium French here from the Tonneria de Mons. My French is terrible, forgive me. All right, good. Going back here. Aaron says hi. So welcome. So also here I have a sample from the 1.1, and so I can compare this to the 1.2. Now, as I mentioned in my video a moment ago, each and every time the barley for 1 year is enough for 36,000 bottles. Each batch is 9,000, so we have 4 batches times 9, 36,000. So what we have here is in this, I don't have the bottle anymore, but in this 1.1, there was 9,000 bottles, sold them almost immediately. And in here, we had 9,000 bottles, which is a little bit older, maybe 4 months, 6 months, around that much older. The next release, 1.3, is going to be maybe a half a year older, maybe 1 year older. And the 1.4 might actually be then 2 years older. Who knows? And then all that barley from that 1 year has been used up from that farm. Then what happens is you go 1 year further, and you have the next barley harvest, and you have actually distilled that, and then you start again with 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. So what I'm going to actually be looking for are the 2.3s, the 2.4s, the 1.2, the 1.4s. I think those 3s and 4s that have been matured longer are going to be the better ones. Now, some people are going to say, oh, I want to have the entire farm. Go for it. If you're going to collect something, decide on one farm and try to do that, because there's over 90 different farms out there, and so it's going to be very difficult to actually collect everything. So going back here real shortly to Ed, there's a video, and Ed actually provided barley for Waterford in 2015, 16, 17, 18, but not in 19. And I'm not sure if the information for 2020 is actually online yet or not. So because the harvest is usually end of September, so it's probably going to happen about now. So he did it for 4 years, and then he quit for whatever reasons, and he might come back into the program. So every year there's basically, hey, Ben, great to see you. Long time. Wow. And Alan, hey, whiskey friend. Looking well, fella. You too. So, and there's always farmers that go in and out of the program. So Waterford has something called biodynamics. It's just not organic, it's biodynamics with the moon and so on. Oh, I don't know about that, but people who've tried it, everyone who's tried it was, wow, that's really good. So we're going to see what we have here. So both of these are under 4 years of age. So let's see what we get. Oh, I like that Oloroso. So nice. Yep. And once again, this is younger. This is the same type, the same whiskey, the same barley, the same whiskey, the same cask, just matured a little bit longer. I actually did a review, only in German, I'm sorry, for Glengarry Renaissance, because they actually did batch 1, 2, 3, 4. So they started, I think, at age 15, 16, and then 17, 18, 19. So they actually let it actually mature 1 year further each time by each and every bottling. And you can actually see the development of that whiskey. And actually, for me, the curve was at 2 and 3, and number 4 was actually too woody, for my personal opinion. All right, very good. So we're going to see what happens here with Waterford, if they actually can get that curve right as well. Now, one other thing about Waterford is when they put out their first release, let's say they have a new farm called Old MacDonald, and Old MacDonald is number 1.1. It might actually be in the year 2026, and it might actually be 10 or 8 years old. And then 1.2 might be 12, and 1.3 might be 15, and 1.4 might actually be 20. Who knows? They could do it theoretically. They don't have to put out whiskey at the age 3 to 4, but they are. When I was there 2 years ago, they had mentioned the fact that they would not put out anything under the age of 6. They would wait until the whiskey is ready. I think there was 2 main factors that helped. Number 1, financial reasons, and number 2, fandom. So number 1, finances. Now, Mark has a lot of money. He can have his own distillery in Grenada. He can have his own distillery in Ireland. It's great to actually have investors and partners and be able to create and have your own distillery. He lives in Islay and so on. The guy's not poor, all right? And so you could actually buy a distillery. You can actually buy then the barley. But the most important and probably the most expensive thing that you have each and every year is wood. Wood is the most expensive thing that a distillery in this case has when they're using virgin oak, when they're using first fill bourbon, when they're using premium French, and when they're using their VDN, their cask for fortified wines. These are expensive things, and they're paying premium price for premium grade barrels. And so they distill about 1 million liters a year. And so they have over 4 million liters worth of Irish single malt whiskey in the warehouse already. That's a lot of wood, people, all right? And so all that has been paid with zero cash flow coming in, because you can only have cash flow when you sell a product. And so I think that's one of the reasons that they said, all right, let's do that now. I think it's okay. There's a market, there's a hype, and let's go for it. I mean, beautiful, beautiful bottle. Took them over 6 months to actually design and get this right. That stopper is glass with a nice little gasket on it, what I'm going to call it, a seal. Works out just fine. You have to get used to it. I like to have cork, but hey, and even the boxes here are very, very nicely done. So on the nose, as I said, Oloroso. Here I have Oloroso as well. One last statement before I start tasting. Now, Waterford wants to prove that terroir, that the soil, that the place where the barley is grown has a massive, major, significant influence on the whiskey we drink. Now, I am a believer that the new make, I've tried it myself, and it's amazing the differences between the different farms. That is true. Now, the question is, how much of the wood influence will actually take over the distillery, the terroir character of the spirit here actually being tasted and enjoyed. The older a whiskey gets, the less dominant that distillery character becomes, and the more the cask actually takes over. And so I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to taste the terroir. I have to have at least something that's very, very similar. So with the first bottling, which I had here, as I said, this was a unicorn because it did not have any virgin oak in it. Therefore, I have to eliminate that from my process. And I would have to actually compare these three to see, hey, almost the same similar casks, almost the same age. Is there a big difference, and where does that difference come from? Is this really then the barley? And I think that's very, very important. Or is it really the different types of barley at the different places where it was grown? And so also there, that's an important factor. Hey, Waterford, if you're listening, I think the barley type, the type of barley is also important, and not just the terroir where that barley was grown. So if I have three different bottlings with three different types of barley, how can I actually compare them and say, oh, it's the terroir, when those factors are not the same either? All right, good. Cheers. 50%, always by Waterford. That's what they want. Remember Buchladi, the classic laddie. Also 50%. This is actually one of my favorite of the Waterford so far. I'm going to read to you the tasting notes of the head distiller here. I know it's copping out. I should be reading my own, but that's okay. Head distiller is Ned. Ned says on the nose, it's malty. Maybe I'm going to say yes. Ripe pears, I don't get those. Raisins, I get. Floral, lemons, warm vanilla custard, pink lady apples. Come on, pink lady apples. Not Granny Smith, not anything else, but the pink lady apples. And oh, I forgot marzipan. Ooh, you can't do a whiskey without marzipan, right? Scotch for dummies. So the taste is fruity, honey, caramel, absolutely. Malted biscuit, yep. A hint of spice heat, yep. Toffee, popcorn, maybe. On lemon drizzle cake. Great notes here. And the finish is really long-lasting oiliness with a spice heat that turns a little dry. And actually, that has a lot to do with the Oloroso casks that we have here. And this is very, very, very good. I like this. I can't wait to try the 1.2. Sorry, I can't wait to try the 1.3 and the 1.4. That's going to be very, very nice. Over here, the 1.1, which I liked, is a little bit still rougher around the edges. You really notice it when you compare the two. It's amazing how you can actually see the development of a whiskey. It's like, oh, that's nice. That's nice. Whoops, what happened? and that's what happened. Oh, what happened? That towards the end, it gets a little bit of a metal moment, a little bit of an alcoholic type of grittiness. Afterwards, you give it a little while. Oh, look, it's back there where it should be. And there's a nice honey, brown, sugary moment. So my question for you is, what do you think about Waterford? Is there actually the thing called terroir in a whiskey? And will the terroir actually be more evident with the aging of a cask and with the aging of the product? Or will it become less evident over the time? So that's something I would like to see. Mark actually has paid for a university to study the effect of terroir on whiskey. Now, I'm not sure. I've seen some spectral graphic images of whiskey and different types of tasting profiles and whatever else. And I'm not really sure if that was with the whiskey or if it was only considering the new make. Because what happens is they marry their casks. So you always have the four things. You always have your first fill American bourbon. You always have your virgin oak from America. You always have your premium French oak. And you always have your VDN. And what they do is they let it actually mature in those casks the entire time, almost like they do in Canada with the grain and the corn and so on. And only towards the end, they actually cuvee, they create a cuvee, they blend them together and create that, what we have. And so they actually have apparently they have some type of tank where they can actually do this. They can marry those casks together so that they can have this whiskey. 9,000 bottles, 9,000 times 0.7 is 6,000 liters. You need 6,000 liters. That's not bad. That's a fairly large tank. All right, good. So that's that. Did I forget something here? Let's go back and then we can talk about that. And then, yeah. So I think I showed this, but I'd like to show this one last time here. And move on to the next one. All right, so we have 36% first fill US. What I still don't like is the fact that we have here VDN 3 listed, and yet we have 6 on the barrels. I would like to have this conform to that, even if it's percentage-wise, they should be the same. You can't have 17 more than, doesn't work out. All right, so this little image here has nothing to do with over here, and that's a shame. But the great information here is wonderful to see that all that is possible. All that is possible to show. One last factor which I would like to talk about, which I think is very, very smart here of Waterford, is we have a problem also with Bruichladdich. I actually, about a month ago, I was doing a tasting and said, oh, I have batch so-and-so, went in there, typed in the batch number, and then actually the age of half the casks had been blackened out. I was like, what's going on here? Why? I contacted the European ambassador for Bruichladdich and asked him, hey, what's going on? He says, yeah, you know, Jason, at European Union, we are only officially allowed to name the youngest whiskey in the bottle, and anything else we actually am not allowed to do. And so there were people out there, competitors and so on, that actually forced Bruichladdich to do that. Now, what we have here is all the whiskey in the bottle is the same. None of this whiskey is older. It's all from one farm. It's all distilled at the same time. It's all put in barrels at the same time. So none of this whiskey is older or younger than anything else in this bottle. It's always a vintage, yay, which means 1 year it's in this bottle, and it's always from the same time. And therefore, Mark with Waterford can actually give us all this information. If he had actually created a cuvee from maybe whiskey from the one harvest and then the whiskey from the next harvest a year later, he would actually in Europe only be allowed to name the youngest whiskeys in there, and he had to black out all the information that's relevant to age for the older whiskeys, which is a very, very unique and dumb thing in Europe. Transparency is something we want, but it's something we can't give you because of that. However, Waterford has actually found a way to work around that and get that information to us. All right, very, very good. Well, I thank you all for watching. I'm going to do stop now, and I'm going to go on to my next video at quarter after. And if you'd be so kind, please go to the next video. I'm doing this specifically here for YouTube and Google processes. I know half of you are watching on Facebook. I'm sorry. But little short videos about each and every distillery will be better and searchable than one long video about all 4 of them. WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, tasting this evening, Waterford, all 4 new releases here in Europe. Thank you very much for watching. If you ever need to contact me, whiskeyjason@gmail.com. All the best, and thank you very much, and see you hopefully at the next video.